Welcome back to part 2 of Healer Bootcamp. In this New World mini-series, I am taking you from a beginner healer all the way to topping the charts of healing in New World. Today, we are going over the Life Staff ability tree and the different types of healers. I like to break healers down into 3 different categories. The first 2, and then a third one that's kind of on the rise with this expansion, and I'll go over exactly how and why I think it's functioning and how to use it to the best of your ability. The first one is your dive healer. When I say dive healer, I'm talking about building our skill tree around Divine Embrace. Now, a constant for all of these is going to be Sacred Ground and Beacon. I think you always need Sacred Ground and Beacon. So let's try and grab Beacon. The first one we're going to talk about is Bend Light. Bend Light is one of the most important pieces you could ever grab inside of healing. The reason why is because we are always trying to do more healing. With Bend Light, this allows us to have 20% more healing as long as we're consistently dodging. It'll be up for 5 seconds, just dodge again before the 5 seconds is up, and we're always going to be doing 20% more healing. Definitely grabbing that. The next one we're going to grab after that is going to be Beacon, because that's the perk that we're running. And then after Beacon, we're going to follow this tree. Beacon's area of effect is increased to 4.5, giving us essentially the ability to heal more people with a larger radius. Then we're going to go down again and take Beacon last 5 seconds longer. This is huge because Beacon can tend to be quite long on the cooldown, especially if we're not doing really well with hitting our refreshing moves and getting different things. So we're going to grab this one, and we're going to take a short pause on that for now. We're going to go over here and pick up Protector's Strength. If you have a buff, all outgoing healing is increased by 20%. With all of the food in the game and the Fortify and all of the different possible buffs, especially this one, Bend Light, this will cause us to get a buff. So 20% more for dodging, and then if we have that buff active, we're also going to have another 20%. So we're definitely going to grab that. This is helping us increase our healing. Next, we want to get some of our other abilities. Like I said, we're going to build around Divine Embrace for our dive healer, so we're going to take Divine Embrace. We're going to make it cost less mana so that we can use it more often. And then we're going to grab our Sacred Ground. Sacred Ground is key. Let's follow this whole tree. Regeneration, 25% faster regen, and 50% mana when you're inside of Sacred Ground. This applies to everyone. Us, the whole team, grab it. Anointed. Allies in Sacred Ground are healed for more. That's our job, to do healing. We're taking that. This brings us over to Enchanted Justice. I think we're going to skip this perk for now. I could see how it could be useful. You get hit, maybe you're in the clump, some people get some healing. I just think there's some better perks. We're going to skip that. We're going to take Intensify. This is your next biggest heal. The way that you are going to set yourself apart from all other healers is partnering Intensify with Bend Light. Every time you hit with a heavy attack, gain a stacking 10% bonus to outgoing healing for 10 seconds. With a max of 3 stacks, we should always be trying to keep this up. That's 30% more healing partnered with our 20% more healing with a buff, another 20% more healing, and you can start to see how this gets crazy. If you're not running these effectively, you're losing out on 70% or more healing. So definitely always be proccing Intensify with your heavy attacks and also Bend Light. Now that we've gotten the most 2 important perks, we're going to go over the rest of them. Sacred Protection, holding a life staff, everybody gets more healing. I hold a life staff, that's a good perk. On the Divine Embrace tree, Shared Struggle is going to be huge for our dive healer. You can jump in there, heal your guy that's low, and heal an additional ally within 8 meters. Learning to use this to your advantage can be huge. If your target is below 50% health, heal one additional ally. So if he's at around 60, I will actually wait till he drops below 50, then hit it, and now I'm healing another person. Also, I'm running Refreshing Divine Embrace, which we will talk about later, but it increases, well, decreases your cooldown if healing someone below 50%. So now I have multiple reasons to heal someone below 50% health. With the Refreshing Divine Embrace on my life staff, it essentially gives it back to me immediately with all of the cooldowns that I'm running. Grab Blissful Touch. Light attacks now heal for 16% weapon damage. We want that. You're spamming light attacks through, and you're just healing allies. To partner with that, we're going to go with Revitalize. When you hit a light attack, reduce light staff ability cooldowns. It's basically another refreshing move. Definitely going to take this perk. Bam, that opened up Divine Blessing. We're going to take Divine Blessing. When you heal an ally below 50% health, they are healed for 30% more. That's our third one. Below 50% health, below 50% health, and then Refreshing Divine Embrace on the life staff is below 50% health. So now you can start to see if you play this correctly and you time it to where you're still getting the heals off. You can't wait too long. It's going to take some practice, and it's going to take an ability of knowing how tanky your friend is or that person in the group is. But if I'm healing someone below 50% health, I'm proccing so much stuff. Desperate Speed. When you heal an ally below 50% health, again, life staff ability cooldowns are reduced by 10%. So you can see how important it is that we use this to our advantage. Then we only have a couple of points left, so we really have to decide what we're going to use here. Rebound. If an ally healed by Shared Struggle is below 50% health, heal another ally within 8 meters of that can be good, but now we're really kind of factoring in too many maybes, right? So the first guy's got to be under 50% health, then the Shared Struggle one's got to be under 50% health. Can be good. I think there's some better things, especially in this current meta. We're running a lot of Exhaust, Rend, Disease, so I think Mending Touch is going to be huge. Heavy attacks now remove 1 debuff when passing through an ally. We are heavy attacking through the people in the clumps because that's how we get Intensify, right? So this is just going to help with something we're already doing, and it's going to take a debuff off of our ally. This Mending Touch is going to be huge for the third one we talk about, which is kind of the up-and-coming meta that I've been seeing a lot more often, and we're going to talk about that later, and that'll be around Splash of Light. So now we have one more point, and you're thinking, what might we take? Now, I used to take Protector's Touch to give myself a little bit more survivability. All of my life staff hits are going to be granting me a little bit more Fortify, but I actually have recently started playing with Glowing Focus. Life staff buffs you grant last 20% longer. And this is mainly because I run Fortifying Sacred Ground, which applies Fortify to my team. If I go here, right, I'm always running Sacred Ground. I'm going to take Glowing Focus. With that, that's going to give us all of our skill trees. That is your dive healer. I'm going to upload some gameplay of me running with this in a future video. You're going to see how that works. Everyone should be running multiple dive healers and area of effect healers, which is the next one we're going to talk about, to make sure that you're actually maximizing the different healers in your group. So if someone says dive healer, this is what they're talking about. We're playing around Divine Embrace. Now I'm going to show you the life staff, right? So if I go into my abilities, I have this life staff, which is my Refreshing Divine Embrace. When below 50% health, reduce this ability's cooldown by 73%. On top of the 4 refreshing that I'm running and all of the other refreshing moves and things that decrease my cooldowns, I can use Refreshing Divine Embrace, and if he's below 50% health, I have it again. No questions asked, it's immediately ready. I also gain 6.2% of my max mana from it. So if he consistently is going under, I can just spam Refreshing Divine Embrace. Boom, 10,000 heal. Boom, 10,000 heal. Boom, 10,000 heal. I'm getting my mana back, and I get my cooldown back instantly. Huge. Definitely would run Refreshing Divine Embrace on the life staff. The reason being, like I said, Sacred Ground is a constant. It's going to be running on anything I do. Every tree, when I respec, I'm going to have Sacred Ground. So I put Sacred Ground on a piece that's not going anywhere. On my armor. 11% armor as compared to a weapon where I have 17% armor. Yes, it's more, but the difference in trade-off is quite a lot, because if I were to run Refreshing Divine Embrace on armor instead of a weapon, it's like 40-something% instead of 73, which means it's not an instant cooldown. I've played around with it. I definitely want to have Refreshing Divine Embrace on my life staff. Now that we've got that covered, and we know we're always going to have Fortifying Sacred Ground, which once again this says for 5 seconds, based on that last perk that I took, I'm going to increase that for another 20%. I think that's the best last perk to go with, or last ability in the skill tree. Next is our Area of Effect Healer. Our Area of Effect Healer is going to revolve around Beacon. So I want a life staff with Mending Protection. With Orb. So Mending Protection is going to help our Orb. 45% outgoing healing power for 3 seconds if Orb of Protection heals an ally below 50% health. We can throw Orb into a clump over and over and over again. And with all of the refreshing that we're proccing, we're going to get it all the time. And then if it happens to heal someone below 50% health, I'm now doing another 45% healing. That's huge. So let's talk about what the tree looks like with Orb of Protection. When I go into the life staff, right, we're revolving now around Orb of Protection instead of Divine Embrace. Take Orb of Protection. Next, take Recovery, right? So if Orb of Protection hits an ally, they gain Recovery and are healed for 6% weapon damage every second. Throwing this into a clump is going to affect every single person it passes through. Big. We're taking that. Once again, one of the most important perks in the game, Bend Light, can't forget it. Taking that first. Shared Protection. If you successfully heal an ally with Orb of Protection, I'm now gaining Fortify and Recovery as well, like the last perk. This increases my survivability and gives me the health I need for not having Divine Embrace to heal myself. Next is Aegis. When this projectile hits, it affects all allies within a 3-meter radius. This is the biggest perk. This is why this is so good. It's essentially a second beacon, and the heals overlap, and your area of effect healing is crazy because you have 1 area of effect, 2 areas of effect, 3 areas of effect. The healing output most of the time cannot be matched. The DPS is not going to be able to keep up. So we're going to take Aegis. Now we're grabbing Beacon. We want Beacon to be larger, and we want Radiance Blessing so Beacon lasts longer. Once again, I like it to last longer. Some people don't take this perk. I do because the cooldown can be long, and I want to make sure I always have heals up. Protector's Strength, if you have a buff, healing is 20%. One of those that we can't miss. And now we're kind of going to take a pause on this tree. We're going to go over to the other tree. We got to get Sacred Ground. Because I'm no longer taking Divine Embrace, I don't really have a choice. I have to take Absolved. It's not the greatest, but we need it, and it's okay, I guess. Now take Sacred Ground, go down the tree again, take Holy Ground, take Anointed. We're going to grab Desperate Speed. We're going to grab Revitalize. We've already talked about these perks, so I'm going a little bit faster. Sacred Protection, once again, every member in the group takes more healing. Intensify, that perk, right? Partnered with Bend Light, 2 best perks in the game. I cannot stress it enough. You need it. Now we go up here, right? So once again, light attacks now heal for 16% weapon damage when passing through an ally. Huge. More healing, more healing. I only have 1 more perk now. And yes, you can tell that I haven't really taken one of the finals, and I'm going to go over that in a little bit. I think if I get hit a little bit of healing or the debuff in the current meta, I got to go with Mending Touch, got to remove the debuffs from my team. So I'm grabbing that, and this is what my AoE looks like. The reason I haven't gone for Divine Blessing is because, yes, I could heal someone under 50% health and do 30% more. However, with the trade-off of always having Beacon up, this is the one that I would drop, by the way. If you wanted to drop this and go here, that could be fine. Not everyone is always going to be under 50% health. However, I can always be healing more people if Beacon lasts longer, and then I can send another Beacon out. I'm just always doing more healing. I've played around with it. You can definitely play around with it. this is the one I would change if you change anything. I like to go with Beacon lasting longer. Bam. And with that, partnered with Minion Protection, that is going to be my area of effect. Now, the final perk, the final skill tree we're going to talk about is something relatively new, and I'll go over why. With Season 3, a lot more life staff perks came out and made things more viable. One of these is Purifying Breeze. Heal for 33% weapon damage every time you remove a debuff from an ally. Okay? So now I'm starting to think, how can I remove debuffs? Right? Because you can also get the perk on your weapon for Splash of Light, which is another one that increases your healing when removing a debuff. But then I have to use Splash of Light. Okay, but Splash of Light partnered with Purifying Breeze, partnered with a ring that has Purifying when you remove a debuff from an ally, heal for 20% weapon damage. Right now I'm starting to stack if I'm removing debuffs, which means when I go into my tree and I look at Splash of Light, right? So we're going to take all these, same as normal, and then Splash of Light. You and your group members within 100 meters are healed for 80% weapon damage. Okay? And then Shared Recovery. For each ally healed that is below 50% health, you gain 15% of your max mana. Now, this has never been good in the old meta, in my personal opinion, because it was easier to use, didn't take as much skill, but it was like nice. You could kind of heal everyone in your group and you didn't have to focus. I don't think the heals were good enough to justify it, except that now we can take Purify. Splash of Light removes one debuff when it heals an ally. So now we're removing a debuff. Partnered with our Mending Touch, that can remove a debuff. Anytime we now clap, right? I like to call the Splash of Light healer a clap healer because that's his little weapon animation. I'm going to be removing one debuff from an ally that it heals. When I remove that debuff, I'm also proccing Purifying Breeze, which increases my healing, and Purifying, which increases my healing. And now I can start to see the clap healer having a much more of a place inside of the meta. I think it's a little bit harder to get to. There's more things that you need. For example, I would only run the clap healer, in my opinion, if you have, say, the life staff. Well, it's kind of a guarantee. You need the life staff to have the weapon perk for Splash of Light. Also, I would like to have Purifying Breeze on it. And then I would take Purifying on the ring as well. If you can stack all of that, I think that's going to be incredible, or at least make it viable. So I think it would look something like taking these once again, and then we'll see how many points we have left over, but we have to get down to here, and then we're going to want to take Beacon. This is our most important perk. We're going to grab Beacon. We might have to remove this depending on what we do. And then we have 4 more left. Probably going to want to take Divine Blessing. We need Blissful Touch. And we're sitting pretty, right? I'll take Glowing Focus. We have 1 more left, and that's with taking that. We're going to grab the buff one because I forgot about that. And then this is what our skill tree is going to look like, right? So we're still taking the important perks. We're now running Splash of Light over Divine Embrace. And as you can see, I'm either running Orb, Divine Embrace, or Splash of Light. I think Splash of Light is a much more niche focus. I think you need a lot of perks to make it good. But if you have all of those said perks, I think it can be all right. Also, the cooldown is a little bit longer than something like Divine Embrace, but with all of the decreases in cooldowns that you're running all of those different perks could make this your third and final viable healing option. So we had the first one as our dive healer, the second one as our AoE effect healer, just kind of throwing them out there, but you kind of risk the fact that you don't have necessarily a targeted heal. And then you also have the clap healer. Where I see these coming into play is if you have a really good clap healer running in a kill squad, that can be super good because as people go down, he doesn't have to worry about targeting anybody. AoE healing is not going to be as good for you guys because you're not necessarily in the clump. You might have a lot of ranged users. So I think the clap partnered with those perks are going to be super good for your kill squads. Your point tank teams, your guys going in on the wars, capturing the points, your OPR players, things like that. I think AoE is probably going to be your best bet. And then your dive healers are kind of going to be in the same realm, but you need to split them up. I think you need to have some dive healers and some AoE healers so not everyone's doing the same role. And then I think your clap healer fits in the kill squad. So this has been the 3 different types of healers. Please, I would advise playing around with them, doing what you can, throwing Sacred Ground on one of your armor pieces so that you always have it, and then finding some different weapons that can get you Mending Protection on one, can get you Fortifying Sacred Ground on one, can get you Refreshing Divine Embrace on one, find another one that gets you the Life Staff ability for the Splash of Light, and kind of see what works for you, but also have the ability to mold. So depending on what I need in my war meta, depending on what the company needs, I have the ability to change, and you're not spending 200 gold every time respeccing your gear, because realistically, I just showed you, all you have to do is respec your tree, because I'm either running Divine Embrace and I'll take Lifewell Channeler, or I'm taking Mending Orb, and then I'm going to grab the Protection with this Life Staff, and you can really play around to whatever your team composition needs. So I highly advise that you take these next few days before the next video comes out, play around with these, find what healing meta works for you, and start to experiment and have some fun. At the end of the day, this game is so much fun, and I just want you to explore healing, figure out how it is, and see how you can best fit your group. In the next episode, we're going to talk about gear. We will go into what gear is best and why, and specifically min-maxing for which type of healer you find yourself playing most often.